This is Binghamton Now on News Radio 1290 WNBF Binghamton and WNBF.com.
I'm Bob Joseph. Welcome to Binghamton Now. And away we go. It's the Thursday edition of the big broadcast. Yes, it's already July 18th, 2024. Where does the time go? And does anybody really care? 607-772-1290. You're welcome to call in and communicate via the airwaves, amplitude modulation, AM 1290, frequency modulation, FM 92.1, online, WNBF.com, and using the newfangled WNBF app. It's free. Allows people worldwide to stay connected with their favorite radio station. So, what's on your mind? What's on your mind, Binghamton? As we start this Thursday morning, the state of the city is excellent. I have explored portions of Binghamton, and I can report to you, without equivocation, the city is in fine shape. And we're working to make it even greater. So it's a great city now, and wait till you see what we do with it in the coming weeks and months. Let's begin our telephonic journey. Hi, you're caller number one. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
It's Beverly from the town of Dickinson. I was going to ask you, did you ever find out what they're building down there by Riverside Drive by the arena?
I don't know that they're actually building something. I think they've been doing some digging. I think anthropologists have been digging around there to see if they could find any dinosaur bones.
Oh, because they put in big pipes. That's what I was wondering.
Oh, well, maybe it's for drainage. You know, there's going to be a big road reconstruction project coming up there in the next couple of years, so maybe they're doing some prep work before the Route 363 project gets underway.
No, I was just wondering because we went past there the other day and it's still vacant, you know, and I thought I'd call and ask, you know, if you found out what they're building or...
Would it be, if we found out that it was going to be for a Chick-fil-A, would that make you happy?
I've never been to one of them, Bob.
But if they built one there... And again, this is pure speculation, but if they did build a Chick-fil-A there, even if it was open only 3 days a week, would you go?
I might.
All right. Well, it's that kind of enthusiasm that the Chick-fil-A Corporation is looking for. So if there are more people like you in the Triple Cities who are that enthusiastic about buying chicken sandwiches on select days of the week, they might actually locate one here.
Yeah. What's that new restaurant that's coming to Binghamton? Everyone's talking about.
Where? I mean, there are a lot of restaurants. I'm having trouble keeping track because there are all sorts of new businesses that are planned in the works. Which one? What location?
Up there by Northgate Plaza. They're talking about they're building something there. They mentioned a restaurant. But that's what I've heard from different people. Somebody said they wanted to build a car wash there, but geez, we got so many car washes on Front Street. We got at least 3.
But you can never have enough car washes.
Oh yeah, I know.
Oh, it took me a moment. It took me just a moment to figure out what you were talking about. They're going to put a Taco Bell. It's a Taco Bell, where the Hess station used to be. See that abandoned Hess gas station with all the graffiti and all of the old gasoline pumps and all the weeds and everything? They're planning to build a Taco Bell.
Oh, because I was just wondering because I knew they were going to do something about it.
Yeah, we had the global exclusive. Our story was actually 2 months ago. It was May 10th when we had the global exclusive that a Taco Bell is going to be built there. They're also going to put in one of those 7 Brew coffee places on the other side of the street near Northgate Plaza. So there are 2 things that are planned in that general area for the coming months. So you're going to have an infinitely better type of choices for your dining and drinking pleasure.
Have you been up to that drive-up coffee shop up there in Vestal?
I was there once, but don't tell anybody. You know how they want people to drive up to get their coffee? Because I was different, also because I was reporting a story and needed some pictures of the place, I got my coffee at the back door.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they don't like that. Well, I mean, let's put it this way. They don't encourage it. I guess they don't dislike it because, hey, for $5, I'm sure they were glad to have my $5, but their preference for that 7 Brew over in Vestal on Plaza Drive near Fox 40, their preference is for people to go to the drive-up lanes and place their order. That's the way they're really set up. But so that's going to be that's one of the things that will be going up there on Front Street, across from the old Hess gas station near Northgate Plaza.
Because every time I go to Vestal, there's a big line. There's a big line up there, you know.
Well, it's been a runaway success. It's been since she opened that. Well, it's not just she, but it's a family partnership that is opening up those 7 Brew locations in New York and Pennsylvania. That was the first one in the Northeast, and it's been very successful in Vestal.
Yeah, I see a bunch of cars because every time I go to physical therapy, my friend takes me and, you know, I said, geez, what's that over there? She said, that's a new coffee shop. I said, it is? She says, why, you want to try it sometime? I said, yeah.
Yeah, why not? Did you hear the other story that we're reporting today about the big renovations that are about to start over at the Northgate Plaza?
No, that's the only one that I heard of. Yeah.
Well, they're going to do a whole makeover of the Northgate Plaza because that's been around now for 51 years. So now the owners are planning to spruce it up and it'll be more attractive. They'll put on new facades and there'll be a new roof put in on part of the complex. It's going to be new and improved, and the work on that will be starting in a few weeks.
Yeah, there used to be a restaurant there. Bobby Flynn owned it. He was his father was a good friend of the family.
Wasn't he the guy who had the polka show?
No, Bob Flynn.
Bobby Flynn with the polkas. Every Thursday morning, Bobby Flynn used to have the polkas. Yeah.
That might have been, but he had the Bull's Head. He run that.
Oh, okay.
And that's been closed for years.
Well, you know, another restaurant that hasn't been around is, what's that one? Oh, Carol's. They used to have a restaurant with club burgers because if you were part of their club, you could go and order a club burger and a Coke and get change back from your dollar. That's how good it was.
Yeah. Hey, they got a new ice cream up here at McDonald's. It's called I can't remember, some kind of a flurry. I think it's got chocolate in it. I'm not sure, but it's a big advertisement in the window.
Okay. Well, then next time I'm up there, I might try one.
All right,
okay.
Bob. Well, you have a good day.
Thank you, Beverly. It's 9:20 at WNBF. I'm the answer man. Yes, I have a few questions, of course, and I always have a few answers. If you're interested in some of the details of the renovation project, this is creating sudden excitement in the town of Shenango on Upper Front Street. People are saying, yes, the all-new, the all-improved Northgate Plaza. Take a look at the story at WNBF.com. We've got some pictures of what it looks like now, and your first look. We have a couple of renderings of what the modernization project will transform the place into. So if you want to see, get a sense, I mean, the rendering, so you have to use your imagination a little bit. But it worked for me when I saw the renderings. I said, I see what they're going to do. So take a look, WNBF.com. Remember Barker's department store? Barker's opened up in September 1973, so that was nearly 51 years ago. And then a couple of the other early businesses at Northgate Plaza included a Carl's drugstore and apparently a Hill supermarket. I say apparently. It's what they claim. I don't remember that, but then again, I was too young at that time to really be paying much attention. 607-772-1290. This is Bob Joseph. Look forward to speaking with you between now and noon on WNBF's Binghamton Now. I think we're alone now. Okay, I don't have to whisper so loudly. At 9:25, WNBF serving the greater Binghamton area. It's just that great. Let's take a look at the forecast here from the National Weather Service, formerly known as the Weather Bureau. Mostly sunny today, 81, mainly clear tonight, 55, patchy fog early tomorrow morning between 4 and 5. All right. Then tomorrow sunny, 80, Saturday partly sunny, 85, Sunday sunny, 86. Right now it's 71, 22 Celsius. WNBF bringing you the finest in air quality. The air quality index right now is 48, and they claim that's good. So go ahead, kids, and breathe deeply. I don't know, some kids are saying, oh yeah, man, we just stopped by the weed shack. 9:27 WNBF, WNBF.com. Let's see what else is happening around America today. As mentioned, that story, some of the details about the improvements planned over at the Northgate Plaza, which could get underway soon and probably take a year or so to complete. So 3 or 4 phases of the work. So if you want more info, our website, WNBF.com, is the place. Also, at the website, we have some more details about the Square Deal Arch. If you missed our conversation with Johnson City Mayor Marty Maney on Wednesday's program, you can get some more details about what is going on with the arch. It still is weird. They removed the arch a few weeks ago, most of it. There's still the bases on either side of Main Street at the Johnson City Binghamton line. So the bases are there, but the arch isn't. So it's still, I'm getting used to it, but it's still, the other thing, though, that is nice for the moment, since they suspended work on the arch project, they reopened Main Street. So I think that's a good thing. Main Street reopened. So you can zoom. You can flit back and forth between Binghamton and Johnson City. J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, which is the name in the news. James David Vance is in the news. Let's listen, shall we, to at least a portion of his acceptance speech, accepting the Republican vice presidential nomination.
Thank you. Please. Wow.
All right. Quite compelling. I, unfortunately, was otherwise occupied last night when the speech was on the TV, so it's, I can see why he is the choice of a new generation. It's like Pepsi, the choice of a new generation. Mr. J.D. Vance, who will turn 40 in a couple of weeks. So I'll plan a big birthday celebration for J.D. Vance here at the studio. If I find out he can make it, I'll call up the store in Johnson City and ask them to make a nice big cake for Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance, James David Vance, who will turn 40 on August 2nd. So it's my fervent hope that he can join me here in the WNBF studio for cake and coffee. Oh, that'll be fun anyways. I just had to look it up. It's going to be on a Friday, so everybody loves cake on Fridays. No, I'm not going to get one with the green icing, and I'm not going to let it melt in the rain. That would be a nice cake. Let's take another call here on the hotline. Hi, you're caller number 2. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, Bob, it's Tom from Endicott.
Morning, Tom.
D.C., last day in D.C., so I thought I'd call in.
Yeah, thanks for calling in.
Hey, a couple of comments. One is I was really impressed with Trump's granddaughter. I mean, it kind of stole the show. She was just remarkable young lady.
Oh, I didn't see that. What's her name?
I don't know, but it was Donald Trump Jr. has 5 children, and it was the oldest one, and he kind of got up before he gave his speech, and he said, my daughter asked me to get up and talk. I mean, for her to get up and talk, and she did about a 5-minute thing, and she talked about her grandpa, which...
Oh, I see the headline now. She's apparently, according to the headline, griping about a lot of people, the way they treat her grandpa. That's the headline. Because she apparently she's, and again, I'll have to listen to the speech, but it sounds like she's in some ways angry or upset.
Well, that might be the headline, and you mentioned yesterday the headline doesn't always represent the speech, but...
Oh, that's true. That's true. I mean, you have to read the whole story. In fact, I'm going to try to find... Not sure if I'm going to be able to find the speech, but I'm going to try... Oh, wait. Here it is. Here's Kai Trump talking about her grandpa at the convention.
I'm speaking today to share the side of my grandpa that people don't often see. To me, he's just a normal grandpa. He gives us candy and soda when our parents aren't looking.
Ah. So her grandpa gives them candy and soda when her parents aren't looking. Is that the one? Is that the because it says here that Kai Trump is 17. Is that the one you're referencing? Yeah.
And her next comment, I think, was that she showed him that he showed her that he got all A's on her. She got all A's on her report card, and he went and printed it out to show it to everybody. So I would recommend that people just watch that, because I mean, with all this other stuff going on, that's the next generation, and I mean, there are some pretty impressive children in that family, and I certainly didn't see her as a threat to anything. acting like that.
A lot of people have put my grandpa through hell, and he's still standing.
Oh, there's where she was complaining about a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's like, who? A lot of people. Now I wish I had seen the whole thing, but here's another part of it. I'll just play, this is a real short clip, but I think this part is really touching and shows, I think this helps to humanize not only the former president, but it helps to humanize his entire family. Of course,
Grandpa, you are such an inspiration, and I love you.
Sorry about the delay there. I had to cue it up on my cassette. So, yeah, I'm gonna go look for the whole speech and watch it today.
Yeah, my only other comment was, I was constantly flipping between CNN, Fox, and MSNBC because I just wanted to see how they reach covering the convention. And I have to give a shout out to CNN. They actually, 95% of the time, even though they had analysts on, they included all the speeches, the good and the bad speeches. MSNBC was just showing commercials and had a thing up that if you wanted to learn more about the convention, you could take a picture and get more information about the convention. And it was kind of sad the way that the bottom it said, Republican National Convention coverage, but it was absolutely zero coverage at all.
Well, now I'm not a defender of MSNBC, but I'll just tell you this. The truth is MSNBC is struggling, and what they need to do, and clearly what they were doing last night, was serving as sort of the choice for people who really weren't that interested in the convention, more interested in how can we bash Republicans, which is sort of the theme of MSNBC, I think, most of the time. So I think that's why, as you discovered, if you really want to know what's going on at a convention, the full story, or at least the full effect, you should be watching on C-SPAN, because I think they provide pretty much wall-to-wall coverage. Then Fox News and CNN, I think, will do better. Your point about CNN providing more balanced coverage than you would expect, I think CNN understands that they have to get back to their original formula. When they started, CNN was viewed as sort of just a mainstream news service that wasn't tilted to one side or the other.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what I wanted to do. And the only other comment is that for that young lady, the way that they timed it, she actually made the major, the people like CBS and so on were only covering 10 o'clock and on. It was maybe a coincidence, maybe not, but she actually made it into that slot.
By the way, here's a news flash. Nothing as far as convention speakers is a coincidence. They timed it that way. Every major speaker is in a position, and the people they want to really put the spotlight on are in that hour when all the major networks are going to cover it. The secondary players, the people from different states or, still important GOP office holders or GOP campaign people will appear earlier in the evening, and they're still important, of course, to the convention, but the people that the convention organizers want to be sure get maximum attention will be in that 10 o'clock hour. So that was not left a chance.
All right, thank you very much. Take care. Have a good day.
9:38 at WNBF. Morning, you're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
I'm a Republican from Binghamton.
Yeah, so what do you think of the convention so far? Pretty good, eh?
I don't want to get into that.
John, I was just trying to push your button.
Yeah, you don't want to upset me,
No, you've already... Earlier in the week, you've offered some of your initial reaction to what's been going on. What's on your mind this morning?
Well, your story yesterday, I believe, on the improvements being made to the plaza on Front Street. I don't know what the name of that. Forgot the name of it.
Northgate Plaza.
Northgate, yeah. And speaking of America and Republican and making it, Brett Pitchard started as a power washer, and now he's a developer. So there you go.
Well, and that's interesting because look at how many projects that he's been involved in over the last few years, and he's got more going on. I mean, the guy is keeping busy. I even pointed out to him, and it's not a huge role as far as I know, but it is a contributing role. His company is also one of the I think subcontractors doing work over at the parking garage. I know William Lane is the general contractor, but I was talking with Mr. Pritchard at Northgate Plaza Wednesday afternoon. I said, "Is your company working at the Water Street parking garage project?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay. I thought I saw one of your trucks." And I've seen his company's trucks at a lot of project sites over the last few months.
He's got a nice building on Conklin.
Yeah,
that road?
Conklin Road. Yeah, just a little bit to the south of Binghamton there. Yeah, he just finished up that building, I think, maybe last fall.
So my concern is, and I'm going to put that resolution into Binghamton City Council that we follow Ithaca, and Batavia's had it for 5-6 decades, go to a city manager form of government. And I believe that Mayor Cram has been showed up here by the town of Shenango, not writing off the Northgate Plaza, which, is probably 7 years old, younger than the Binghamton Plaza, and being business friendly. Because, it's the same deal. It's the same river. It's the same type of structure. But Cram wants to destroy what little business is left in the city of Binghamton. He thinks he's knowledgeable, I guess, in commercial real estate. If the guy went to Pyramid or CB Richard Ellis or whatever it is, CRE, he'd last about, a day and a half. So I just think it shows how Binghamton, how the mayoral system has crumbled into just photo ops and campaigning for the next political job, and we don't need it. We need a city manager like Ithaca, like Batavia, like a lot of other local governments in New York, and we will get much, much better results and reduce the administrative cost to the city. So I'm going to put that in, and I think this debacle of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer money in eminent domain and condemnation and all these legal battles to destroy a commercial property that the town of Shenango proves beyond a doubt that it's viable. So,
when do you plan to submit your proposal to the city?
Well, maybe today, tomorrow, or thing. I try to, when I tell you something, I try. I told you about that lawsuit against the county, and that has been filed. But I would say within what's today? Oh, Thursday. By Monday anyway.
All right. Well, keep me posted.
Yeah, we're gonna. The Mayor Cram should be the last mayor of Binghamton.
John from Binghamton, live on our show today, and we'll see how things go, how that proposal is received. A proposal for a system involving a city manager. It's 9:43. What do you think about anything? About the city of Binghamton, town of Shenango? Sounds like the town of Shenango now is firing on all cylinders. Right? Everything has been resolved. It's smooth sailing ahead for the town of Shenango. Tonight at 11. You're listening to the Binghamton Now program Thursday with Bob Joseph, 92.1 FM, 1290 AM, streaming at WNBF.com. Let's go back to the phones. Caller number 3, Teresa from Binghamton's North Side. Good morning.
Good morning, Bob. How are you this wonderful morning?
I am fine. And how are you, Teresa?
I'm good. I still hope Johnson City Mayor is listening, because the Gannett Street should be Carousel Drive.
Well, I like that. Carousel Drive. The problem is Harvey Stenger probably won't like it. Harvey Stenger is going to want something, I think, more modernistic or futuristic, something to do with batteries or something equally shocking.
Right. But I still like that Carousel Drive.
I do, too. I think you're right on the money on that one.
Well, you got Carousel right down the street. Oh, well.
Yeah. Well, the bad thing about the Carousel is you're not allowed to take pictures.
I know.
Well, George F. Johnson, can you imagine if George F. Johnson was alive today? He would probably be saying, what? You have to get permission to take pictures on my carousel?
I know. He's probably rolling over in his grave right now.
Yeah. Well, you don't want it to get out of hand. Next thing you know, people are taking videos and posting them to Twitter and TikTok and everything else.
Yep.
All right.
All right, Bob. I love this show, and keep doing a good job.
Yeah. What's your doggy's name?
Wolfelina Black. She's a German Shepherd.
Tell her I said hello.
I will. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. WNBF. 4 out of 5 dogs in Broome County say woof. If I bought this station, I would rebrand it. I know people say, you would change the call letters after a century? Well, maybe. If I did, probably wouldn't, now that I think about it. We've been working on this brand for nearly 100 years, so probably not wise to change the call letters at this stage. But if, by chance, somebody forced me into a corner and said, Bob, what would the new call letters be? WOOF. Binghamton. Woof. Baby. Woof. And do the first dog talk show. Those barking dogs. The Jingle Burger song. Could, as a stunt, in some radio stations when they change format, they do something called stunting. So for sometimes an hour or a day or even a week before they switch over to a new format, they do some sort of wacky thing, usually to get attention in the media, free publicity, because people will talk about it if you do something weird with your radio station. So if I ever change WNBF's format, that's what I would do for maybe a day or maybe a weekend before the new format is rolled out. We would have the Wolf Radio. Wolf Radio, 92.1 FM, 1290 AM. Who let the dogs out? And then we would go into our new format called Your Quiet Island. It's 9:50 at WNBF with Bob Joseph coming up with the ideas and always a few questions. Let's see what else is going on. Well, here's something from the ABC News Corporation. Ford is planning to make its F-Series super-duper pickup trucks at a plant in Ontario starting in 2026. So I guess our hopes of having the new Ford plant in Endwell have been dashed. Darn. I was hoping the new Ford plant for the F-150 super-duper pickup trucks would be in Endwell. Because then, finally, if they built the new F-Series super-duper pickup plant, you could actually do it where Hooper School was. Remember where Hooper School was on Main Street? That would be a great place for a car or a pickup truck plant. And then they finally would build that bridge between Hooper Road and Vestal Road. So we'd finally, our national nightmare of not having enough bridges in western Broome County would be taken care of. But Ontario wins. Congratulations to our neighbors to the north. According to ABC News. Actually, they have an AP story. On the ABC website, they will spend $3 billion. Can you imagine if Ford came to Endwell and agreed to spend $3 billion for their super-duper pickup truck facility? That would be a lot of jobs. Of course, then if that happened, the upside would be a lot of jobs and a boost to Broome County's economy. But the downside, the next morning people would be complaining about all the traffic. Well, I can't believe Ford is making super-duper pickup trucks where McDonald's used to be. Yeah, but they're employing 950 people making pickup trucks. Yeah, but now the traffic. And then I really hate that bridge, the Hooper Road Bridge over to Vestal Road. Yeah, I know. It's predictable. So, anyway. Elsewhere in the news, I know. I didn't even have a chance to check the New York Times, our favorite paper. Oh, well, this is interesting. This is, I guess, what you would call the backstory, or if Paul Harvey would be around today, this could be the rest of the story. The featured story on the front page of the Times, an apology broke the ice as Vance courted Trump. Former critic spent years winning favor. Wait a second. Now this sounds like a clearly calculated effort to get himself on the ticket. The meeting got off to a bad start. J.D. Vance walked into Donald Trump's office at Mar-a-Lago. Former president had a big stack of papers on his desk. Printouts of Mr. Vance's copious broadsides against Trump. Vance's past criticisms had included an essay in one of Trump's least favorite magazines, The Atlantic, where Vance described Trump as cultural heroin, a purveyor of false promises to the white working class. Trump, using an expletive, bluntly told Vance, "You said some nasty stuff about me." The discussion that followed was described in detail by two people with knowledge of the meeting, who, of course, are not named by the New York Times. Vance's next move was crucial. This was the first time he was meeting Trump, and Vance needed the former president to like him, or at least leave the meeting with an open mind. Vance, at the time, was running for an open U.S. Senate seat in Ohio as a Republican populist, a never-Trumper who had suddenly turned into a pro-Trumper. So, anyway, it's interesting that somehow the New York Times has the rest of the story about how our vice presidential candidate, the Republicans' vice presidential candidate, J.D. Vance, changed his tune. Because, as you've seen from the liberal media have been having a field day reminding us about some of the things that J.D. Vance has said in the past, in the not-too-distant past, about Donald Trump.
Lordy, I hope there are tapes.
See, that's the thing. You might not like the liberal media, but the one good thing they do is they keep tapes. They keep tapes because they know at some point those tapes will come in handy. And so the media, actually conservative media too, now that I think about it, the media in general have been having fun with all the tapes, their big stack of tapes.
Lordy, I hope there are tapes.
And so, but as J.D. Vance has pointed out, and I think Donald Trump has confirmed, hey, everybody is free to change his mind. It's not called a flip-flop. It's called getting more information and making adjustments. There's nothing wrong with adjusting your position about policies or people as you learn more information. It's 9:56. This is Bob Joseph, live in color on NBF. Everyone is welcome to make the call to WNBF. Give us a call. We love to talk with everyone every weekday morning here on the Binghamton Now program. Joined now by Joanne Hanrahan, the Friends of the Broome County Public Library. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
I am well. How are things? Is the book sale heating up?
Oh, my gosh. We are in full swing here at the Broome County Public Library in our book sale room. And we had to cancel our last sale in June because of the elections. So I have to tell you, we are just overloaded with books. So we have them not only in our bookcases, but we have them underneath our bookcases. And we are just fully stocked with any subject that you are looking for. Hardcovers, literature and poetry, true stories, politics, arts and crafts, cookbooks, health, humor, you name it, we got it. And we got 5 cases filled with beautiful children's books to go for 50 cents and 25 cents. So, yeah.
What is the most expensive book?
$1.
Oh, my gosh. You know, with this inflation, how can people possibly afford $1 for a book?
Bob, we have not raised our prices for 15 years. Hardcovers are $1 and paperbacks are 50 cents and the kids are 50 cents and 25. And some of our books, especially our hardcovers, are brand new. I'm not kidding you. Brand new. So come down and see us and get some deals. Yeah, we don't have inflation here with the Friends of the Library.
That's a good thing. At least there's one thing you can depend on.
And Saturday is our $5 bag sale. Bring in your grocery bag and fill it for $5. But if you're looking for a particular book, you're going to want to get in here today or, well, actually tomorrow we're open to the public, and then Saturday is our $5 bag sale. But no, you really need to get in here. We got a whole case on war, old books. We got Westerns. Cozy mysteries. If we've got women out there looking for cozy mysteries, we have 2 or 3 shelves of cozy mysteries. And come on down. It's so hot. Everybody's sitting inside. Grab some books and have a hot cup of tea or your iced tea. And I'm telling you, you're going to be in second heaven. How's that?
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, I'm glad you were able to give us the update. Keep an eye out because you know that one WNBF listener who frequently drives up from out of town with his wife. A lot of times she'll be inside at the book sale and he'll be outside in the parking lot listening to the finest radio program ever.
Absolutely. And all of our listeners, your listeners, they come on in and they go, I heard you on the Bob Joseph Show. And I go, excellent.
Absolutely. Hey, we helped get the word out. Joanne Hanrahan, thank you so much. I'll let you get back to the important business of selling books.
Thank you very much, Bob.
It is 1013 WNBF, serving the community. Why? Because that's the right thing to do. Others may talk about it. We do it on a daily basis. And I also keep throwing my pen around. Sorry, I started doing that when I was about 4 years old, and I haven't quite been able to break the pen-tossing habit. Although somebody's liable to come in here and break me of that habit. Let's see what else is going on. Oh, everybody, the toast of the town is, of course, as we've been talking, J.D. Vance. Let's get the very latest from James. Is it really James David Vance or is it James Dean Vance? I think it's James David. Yeah. J.D. isn't James David, not James Dean. Although that would be kind of nice. When he was born, his name was James Bowman, James Donald Bowman, and now he's James David Vance. But, well, plus I have to go buy his book. Plus I have to go see his movie. Anyway, let's go to our audio desk. Yes, our system has just ingested 8 seconds of new audio. This is J.D. Vance speaking this morning at a breakfast. Hold on a second. Problem too often is if I don't enter the 20-digit access code, the audio clip won't air. Okay, let's give it a try.
I thought what I'd do this morning is just talk a little bit about how I think about my faith and my own faith journey, just so you understand me a little bit better.
All right, so there you go. That's the latest, just ingested from our audio ingestion center. It's 10:15 at WNBF. Now, of grave concern is these new bulletins about President Biden now testing positive for COVID. And talk about bad timing. And I know many of you are not big fans of Joe Biden. I get that. Oh, honestly, I get it because I work here. So I understand that there are some people in our audience, or some of our viewers who are, to be blunt, not fans of Joe Biden. I certainly appreciate that. But still, you have to feel in some ways bad for Biden at this stage. He just can't catch a break. More and more of his fellow Democrats appear to be turning against him. And over the last few days, I think there's been a consensus. Say if the election, not that it can be held tomorrow, but just say they were able to have an instant election and the election would be held tomorrow, I think most Americans understand Biden probably wouldn't get the most votes. And I'm not saying that's fair. I'm just saying that's probably true. So, Biden, we'll just say the last month has not treated Biden nicely. Starting with the debate, and since then, nothing's gotten better. And then he comes out and they claim he's tested positive for COVID. So now apparently he has to stay in his garage in Wilmington next to the box of secret documents in his Corvette and do the work of the people. So, because he has to stay out of circulation until he gets past this COVID. So he's just, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking what the guy is going through. It's 10:18. Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, good morning, Bob. This is Vinny from Binghamton. When you took last week off, you drove me away for a week. I started.
Well, that wasn't the intent. You're supposed to be here whether I'm here or not. My attendance may be spotty, but even if I'm not here, you're supposed to be loyal to your station.
Hey, I've told you before, when you're gone, I'm gone, man. I am gone. But anyway, I got on some of my serious calls with some of the progressive radio stations, and there happened to be a girl who called in, and she was at that fundraiser at was one of those rallies that Biden was at, and they had to cancel out in California, and they canceled because he came down with the symptoms. They said it's nothing bad. He's just resting now. Because I guess, and probably Scotty can tell us out there in California, that it's getting pretty bad. Well, it's raising up in California area. Something to do with the wastewater or something like that, I was reading. But, the reason I called is because the sadness of what happened Saturday, there's just so many angles to it. And, Bob, I remember when the Newtown shooting happened, Sandy Hook. And when we had the 26 people that were killed and the 20 of the kids, 6 to 7. Matter of fact, some of them would have graduated this past couple months ago. And I remember Obama going up there and saying to himself, he said that, is this the price we have to pay for our freedoms? And now in 2024, sadly to say, yes, Mr. President, this is the price we pay for freedom. And the reason I say that is because when you have one side that wants to protect not guns, but these weapons of war. It's going to be kind of hard. I mean, we had, and let me give you a perfect example. When that shooting happened in Sandy Hook, we talked about doing something about this problem in our country. The other side gave us hopes and prayers. When the Parkland shooting happened, 17 were killed. We've got to do something about these weapons of war. The other side said hopes and prayers. That happened in Texas. Even the Aurora shooting, when they had 58 people were injured and 12 were killed. Hopes and prayers from one side. We've got to do something about this from the other side. This goes all the way back to basically the Brady Bill, which took 6 years to get put as a law. And so what happened Saturday? A man running for president barely escapes being assassinated. We come out, oh my gosh, what happened? What happened? One side says we've got to do something about this. Once again, like we've always talked about, because this is the same apparatus that's been used in all these shootings. These young people, they're trying desperately to find a motive they can't. These are these lone guns. But what does the other side say? I mean, it's just crazy. Here's Representative Derek Van Orden. This is what he said, Republican. It's obvious the shooting at the Trump rally was because of the leftists. You've got all these things. You've got another one talks about, this is from Representative Mike Collins from Georgia. This is what he said. He said the district attorney at Butler County should immediately file charges against Joe Biden for enticing an assassination. How are you going to deal with this when you've got one side that wants to protect a weapon of war?
Well, sometimes when people say, well, if you have more restrictions, heck, even if they immediately banned the legal sale of these weapons that appear to be so attractive to deranged killers, they still would get their hands on them, even if it wasn't through a legally regulated store.
Well, I know that, Bob, but at least it's some type of deterrent. It's just like liquor.
Well, that's true. They can regulate. I'll tell you what, it's just like heroin. Heroin is still illegal in New York State, and yet I know, even right now, believe it or not, I bet there's somebody who's listening to WNBF who's using heroin, even though it's illegal. You can make things illegal to sell or even illegal to possess, but that's not going to stop it.
No, and I wanted to read this one because this one was really interesting. It says shooting was not some isolated incident and suggested President Biden's campaign was at least in part to blame. The central premise of the Biden campaign is that President Donald Trump is an authoritative fascist who must be stopped at all costs. That rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination. You know who said that? That was J.D. Vance.
No, I was going to say, it sounds like James David Vance to me.
Yeah. So what do we say? Well, that's part of the problem. There's solutions to these problems, but what happens is we can't find the solutions to correct these problems because of stuff like this. This doesn't bring the country together. And tonight's speech, it's not going to. He's not going to change.
Well, don't prejudge. He could change. People do change, not often, but they do.
But Bob, very, very simple. This man is like George Wallace. They're driven by power. When George Wallace was shot and he was paralyzed from the waist down, he still went out there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And the only thing that humbled this man was when they came around. They were up to some rally, and the guys came around to pick him up out of the car. They brought the wheelchair around. And as soon as they tried to lift him up to put him in the wheelchair, they dropped him. Cameras came over, microphones came over, and he looked like a fish out of water. And that killed his campaign. Now, I got that from that documentary, David McCall. It was 3 hours, they talked about it, and he went down the same steps as Trump. And Trump has painted himself, Bob, now in a corner where he can't get out. And it's kind of like what Wallace said, because the people that knew him said, why are you doing all this hate speech and stuff like that? He goes, I tried talking about schools. I tried talking about bridges and roads to build them. The people didn't want to listen. But as soon as I start talking about segregation, they got up and hooped and hollered.
Well, you have to talk about the things that are going to resonate with the people who support you. You have to motivate people, not just to show up to rallies, but most importantly, to actually vote on any given day or any given election. I think that's the thing. If your supporters aren't energized, then you're never, ever going to win. Hi, WNBF, you're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Bob from Bethel. You know what set me off.
I have no idea. So let's try, though, something new and different. Let's keep it positive. Let's talk in a positive way about what Donald Trump will say to the American people tonight.
Donald Trump's the greatest thing that ever happened to this country. Yeah, these people like to...
Well, let's not talk about these people. Let's talk about the people at the Republican convention. Did you hear the speech from James David Vance last night?
Yeah, I see you're already cutting him down.
I didn't cut him down. I don't think I've said a single negative thing about J.D. Vance.
Oh, you're not right in the brain. You people, I'm telling you.
Which people?
We need to snap out of this Joe Biden business.
Hey, it's happening, man. You saw him yesterday on TV as he was, and it was such a sad sight to see the President of the United States, the most powerful person on the planet, just in such, I don't know if it was excruciating pain because of COVID or fatigue or whatever, or exhaustion. I mean, seeing him just take seemingly forever to go down the steps of Air Force One, it was heartbreaking.
You've been watching for 3 years, man, I'm telling you.
So it's a terrible thing that now he's sick, he can't campaign, and this all happens at a time when his opponent is going to make the greatest speech of his life, and Joe Biden is not in a position to properly respond to it.
Let me talk. Joe Biden does not have COVID. That's so they can stick him away in the basement. You don't believe the White House physician who has said that President Biden has tested positive for COVID. Call him that because he's not president.
The President of the United States, Joe Biden, Scranton's favorite son, has tested positive for COVID. Again, this is the third time.
God, are you going to get it?
I hope not. I hope not. You're lucky. Count your blessings, Bob, that you've never had COVID.
I never got any stupid shot, I'll tell you that right now.
And you never got COVID, so be content. You're one of the lucky people.
I had it bad. I thought I was going to die. But I'm not going getting shot with something 8 times like you did. Oh, what happened to Ron from Binghamton? Did he die or something? He called in here religiously.
I know. He was a regular fixture. He's one of our regular contributors. I'm waiting to hear.
Yeah, because he used to call every day. He talked about, concussions a lot too much for me to handle. He was like concussion doctor.
Right. No, that was certainly a big issue. I mean, not only did he call the program, but he also wrote about it in the newspaper for the op-ed piece of the newspaper. So, yeah, hopefully we'll hear from him.
Catch up over the years. See, I got a memory like a steel trap.
Okay. Hey, I have to move on because Congressman Mark Molinaro is coming on.
Oh, yeah. You'd rather talk to me than that more.
It's 10:30 at WNBF Binghamton, transitioning, as we must, from Vestal to Milwaukee. Congressman Mark Molinaro, live on WNBF. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am well. How are things in Milwaukee?
Well, I have to say the level of enthusiasm and unity here, you can feel. I think you know this, but I wasn't planning to come to the convention. In fact, only after the events of Saturday did I think it was necessary. And frankly, many of my colleagues just felt it was a good show of unity as we obviously navigate through that near assassination. And so being here, came in late yesterday. I'll be out first thing in the morning tomorrow. It's just there's a level of enthusiasm and unity behind really the things that I think people do care about: security of the border, making life more affordable, and really making sure government kind of respects the communities like the ones I represent, that have in many ways seen businesses and families leave. So, good to be here. Always better to be back in the district.
So given what happened 5 days ago, what needs to be done? How should the country respond? Even several days later, it still doesn't seem real. It almost felt like a dream sequence, and yet we know it's real. We saw the video of that rally from Butler County, and we've been following all the developments since then. Where should the country go from here?
Well, I'll offer two answers because I think it's important. There are two competing interests here. Number one, we need answers, and rightfully so. And so the ongoing investigation to determine what went wrong by the FBI, Department of Justice, that has to continue. Congress is beginning its oversight responsibility, and that's our job. I know there are many folks who say, leave it to the FBI or you guys, you do investigations, but our job is to provide the appropriate oversight. And so several days ago, we called for the Homeland Security Committee and the Oversight Committee to begin their investigation, begin asking questions of Secret Service and others. So far, the director of the Secret Service has been not responsive and has decided, the administration decided not to step forward and have her testify. That's not acceptable. And again, our responsibility is to say for and on behalf of the American people what went wrong. And clearly there was a failure of security. There was a breach of security. And there are some obvious questions that you all know we should get answers to. Why that building wasn't in the inner perimeter, why the roof wasn't occupied, and so on, and then communication issues and how. So what went wrong? Secondly, what's happening right now to make sure that in this election, this year, the principal candidates for office are protected and that these mistakes won't happen this year again? And then prospectively, right, what do we do moving forward to ensure the system works and the people are protecting not only the candidates, and that's important, but more important is even making sure that ordinary Americans who want to exercise their role in the political process, that they're protected. We had the death of a former fire chief. We had injuries, and these are ordinary Americans who have every right, Republican or Democrat, or no party at all, to simply participate in that process. They need to be protected, and they trust that Secret Service and others are providing that safety. But the second half, and I'm sorry to be a little bit longer than I ordinarily am, but the second half is also what do we do as individuals to ensure that we make clear that elections are determined by votes, not violence. And I think what that means is that together we have to choose our words more carefully, and we have to choose our actions carefully to uphold the principles and the values that we believe in, and ultimately we wish to instill in our kids. And that's sort of the thing I say often, which is, our kids are watching, and so for me, and I think I've always done this, but I'm certainly very sensitive to it now. I think we ought to be very cautious about the language we use and the way in which we describe those with whom we disagree. We can have healthy disagreements. We need to learn to disagree better, and we ultimately need to recognize that there's no place for violence of any kind based on and from any ideology in our political discourse.
Following Saturday's assassination attempt in Butler County, many have called on Kimberly Cheadle to step down as director of the Secret Service. Do you agree with them?
I generally do. I do. I think that they're always, at the end of the day, is someone who has to be responsible for what clearly, and I think will ultimately be proven to be some deep problems in the operation that led to, again, a near assassination. I also think that it is responsible for us to ask the questions to ensure greater transparency and then to demand accountability. But I don't foresee a scenario by which we begin that investigation and end it and not expect that there needs to be new leadership of the Secret Service.
Talking with Congressman Mark Molinaro, who's in Milwaukee, as the Republican National Convention will be wrapping up this evening. What is your reaction to the choice of J.D. Vance to be the running mate, Donald Trump's running mate?
I'll say I call balls and strikes. I will say he wasn't the pick that I thought originally made the most sense, but obviously for President Trump, he does. But I will say, listening to him, and certainly I've listened to him over the course of the last year or so, but listening to him even last night, he spoke to the very kinds of challenges and people and communities like the ones that I serve, communities that once were manufacturing titans, and they've seen, because of offshoring and insiders deciding to move companies and jobs overseas, we've seen those communities sort of hollow out. He spoke to working class families, those in labor who, by the way, I enjoy a great relationship with, and saying that these are the men and women who have built the great American communities, and we have to ensure that we're protecting them and creating the jobs that the middle class needs. And I will say, from his own personal story, but again, projecting it forward, there are too many who struggle with mental health and substance use disorder. So in a strange way, and I said this I think yesterday, you would not have heard that speech in a Republican convention 10, 12 years ago. It is a much more populist perspective, right? It's a more working American message, and he's lived it, he believes it, and I think, by the way, is going to help give voice to people who too often feel overlooked, and certainly that's my priority, to give voice to people who are too often overlooked.
If J.D. Vance wasn't your first choice, who would you have chosen? Say if Donald Trump, not that he takes advice from probably many people even outside his family, if he had said, Congressman Molinaro, who do you think I should pick? Who would? Toss out a name, not necessarily the one you would have said would have been the best, but give me a sample of the type of person you might have preferred or expected before Mr. Trump made his choice of Mr. Vance.
I knew you were astute enough to catch me say that maybe it wasn't the first choice. In my mind, you would ask me this question as well. I'm very satisfied with the ticket. I do think that he brings something. I thought Glenn Youngkin can bring something. I thought Marco Rubio could have brought something. I thought Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley could have brought something. But again, satisfied they were going to battle with this team, and hopefully will give voice to the people and communities of upstate New York.
One thing we know, presidents and former presidents don't really look for unsolicited advice, and I'm sure that is the case with President Biden. He doesn't want to hear advice from you or me, but just between the two of us, if you were in a position to suggest what Joe Biden might do at this point, given everything that's happened over the last few weeks, starting with the dismal performance at the debate on a Thursday night, and then some of his less than stunning performances and sit-down interviews, and now, sadly, testing positive for COVID, and looking, at least in the short glimpses we've seen at him, as a person who's, at least at the moment, not physically in very good shape. Just given the way things are going, what do you think he should or ought to do? With the understanding you're not in the business of trying to help the Democratic Party ahead of the November election, but what kind of common sense advice would you give to Joe Biden and his people under these circumstances?
I think it's clear that Joe Biden cannot fulfill another 4 years, and I worry, quite candidly, that he may not be able to fulfill the duties of president that much longer. And I say that. I don't say that because it's beneficial or not to Republicans or Democrats. I'm an American like you, and the president clearly cannot fulfill his responsibilities and moving forward. And we saw that on the debate stage, and that's unfortunate. I will say out loud, because I'm in the business of obviously also wanted to adequately represent the people I serve. I just think that we've seen this decline over the course of the last several years, but certainly accelerated over the last 18 months. Whether it's my opponent or other Democrats, they've sort of not allowed the public to see this, and there's been a degree of cover up in order to accommodate. That's not healthy. I remember the days, I was a very young man, but still of Ronald Reagan and the onset of Alzheimer's. And the conversations that occurred then. We are dealing certainly with someone who gave his life in service, but clearly cannot continue certainly into a next term. Let me also say, I just want to offer this. That's before COVID. I don't want anyone getting sick. You don't want anyone getting shot at. So whether it's what we experienced on Saturday or contracting an illness, those are not the things that should define how we ultimately make these kinds of pronouncements. I want the president to be healthy and safe. And I just think that America just certainly couldn't withstand another 4 years under this president. And I don't think this president can provide leadership into his next term.
Well, perhaps for many Americans, at least, what's transpired since Saturday has helped more people to at least appreciate everybody, presidents, former presidents, and candidates at all levels. They're people too. We all are frail, and we never know what'll happen from one minute to the next.
Well, that is for sure, but it's also given us a good reminder that in this country, again, we want people to be able to exercise their rights to participate in the political process, and that shouldn't be endangered by violence. And again, we just cannot have that in the political space. And ultimately, every life matters. And again, to have a rally goer lose his life, several others injured. Those Americans are as important, but I would argue constitutionally more important than the office holders or the candidates, and we ought to be very concerned about that.
One final question. This just was submitted by a listener. Are you concerned with Donald Trump's and J.D. Vance's position on Ukraine?
To a degree, yes. I've obviously I helped lead the effort in the House to secure the next round of funding for Israel, Ukraine, and the Indo-Pacific. But I also have been clear, and I think that President Trump has at least said this, certainly, there does need to be a strategy to repel Putin and to end conflict. And I'm not certain that this president has I'm positive this president hasn't articulated, nor has the world community articulated what steps will happen next to, again, repel Putin. He's acted criminally, should be held accountable for that, taking too many lives, acting absolutely as a tyrant, and then also bring conflict to an end. How do you do that? And I think that, America is best when we stand with our partners and protect democracies around the world, and also, however, stand for peace. And how do you get to peace while projecting the strength and partnership that's necessary?
Congressman Mark Molinaro joining us live from Milwaukee. Thanks for calling in. We'll be in touch.
Always a pleasure to be with you. Be well. Thanks.
Thank you. It's 10:44 at News Radio, WNBF, 607-772-1290, a community conversation. Binghamton and beyond, wherever you are, whether you're in New York, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, wherever you are, even Canada, even Cuba, even North Korea, call in. You have to look up the country code, though. I can't help you there, but it's probably online. 607-772-1290. It's Bob Joseph live from Binghamton, New York, USA. And let's go back to the phones and take more callers. Jesse and Owego, you're on the air.
Bob, I hope people are listening a little bit more closely, because what they don't realize is that you just highly gave Biden a ton of accolades. You have elevated him. Instead of being a cellar dweller, like, in the dungeon where you are currently with that blank wall, you have moved him up into a garage next to a ton of top secret documents next to a little blue Corvette.
Well, I think especially in the summer, he deserves to enjoy the beauty of his garage, and especially his beautiful vet.
Yeah, all he has to do is add a ton of windows, and I think he'll be in ship shape.
Well, let's join with all of our other fellow Americans and wish him the best. That's certainly just devastating. Well, I mean, not only how that debate went, still can't get that out of my mind, but then just the way the interviews have been going, the public performances. As I said, this kid can't seem to catch a break, and now COVID for the third time.
I have a discerning difference between debates and retrobates. I'm kind of wondering which direction is it going.
Well, I think we all know the direction it's going, and it's not going well. Unfortunately. I mean, I don't see any way they salvage it. Well, I do see a way, but I can't talk about it on the air, because then people would say, oh, that means you're giving him advice. And I'm not supposed to give them advice. I have a great way for everyone to move forward. And virtually everyone, not everyone, virtually everyone would be happy. I have a way that would make probably 90%, 95% of Americans happy. Yes, that includes the Republicans. But, I don't think, between you and me, I don't think some people want to be happy. Vic from the Forks, you're on the air.
Good morning, Bob. You can hate the ideals of a man, but you should never hate the man. I hope Joe Biden gets better if he does have COVID. But it looks to me like if he had the COVID, he's not following his own protocol, walking around without a mask on, shaking hands.
Doing interviews. I'm also concerned. He did an interview with a guy from BET Network. Right before that, he did an interview on Monday with Lester Holt from NBC Network. I mean, what about those guys? They're at risk. What if they wind up testing positive for COVID?
I think that's just sad. But I just read on the internet, and you can't believe everything you read on the internet. But there's an interesting article about Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, and others meeting with Biden, and they're wearing them down. And we might hear an announcement rather soon, and it looks like Kamala's going to be the pick.
Well, it sounds like the way to go. Then the big question, though, if Kamala Harris is the presidential candidate, then who does she pick? Who does she pick for a running mate? Kathy Hochul? I mean,
no.
Look, we can all agree that if Kamala Harris winds up being on the top of the ticket, she needs to pick someone, a running mate who is vibrant and popular. So I would think probably the best choice for her would be Kathy Hochul.
I disagree. I think
Why? Why? Kathy Hochul has demonstrated ever since she had to take over when her, I hate to say the boss, when the guy who was governor, whose name isn't going to be mentioned here because there might be kids listening, but the governor who had to leave early because of improprieties and allegations, I think Kathy Hochul has certainly been governor since then.
Kathy Hochul's not much of a governor for New York as far as many of us are concerned, but I think...
well, then who? If not Kathy Hochul, who should be the Kamala Harris running mate? Throw out a name.
Hillary Clinton.
I love this program. 10:52, frivolity ensued. And we still have another hour coming up on WNBF. Thursday morning, continuing, just waiting to find out when the next shoe will drop, as you know it must. 76 right now. 76 trombones in the big temperature parade. And, of course, that's 24 Celsius. Hi, WNBF. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where you're calling from?
This is Paul from West Windsor.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, I'm thinking about, like everybody's thinking, how can we stop violence? They're talking about the guns and all this stuff, and I'm 75, but the young people, I think they should have a course in philosophy. They should have group meetings in an auditorium and talk about good and evil in the last 2,000 years, and just have the kids talk with their peers and talk about values. And that would be a course.
I agree. That would at least be a start.
I know young kids like to have their opinions. They like to express their opinions, and there's no opportunity for them to do it.
Well, then that's why they need talk shows for kids. I mean, not kids, but for teenagers and people in their 20s. Not shows like this for older folks, but for younger folks so they can express their opinions.
Well, in the middle school or in high school, they should have an auditorium meeting and a course where they come in for half an hour or an hour, and they just discuss good and evil values and let them talk and talk about solutions to the problem of violence.
I agree. Good ideas. Thank you so much. We've got more calls coming up. Stick around. We're only getting underway. We've only just begun. Binghamton Now, WNBF. Binghamton Now, the show of champions. Every weekday morning here, 9 to noon. Let's take a call, shall we? Hi, you're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
I am Matt at the 11 o'clock hour.
Welcome to the 11 o'clock hour.
I'm glad to be here. It's ironic. Who's the guy that... Oh, Bob from Vestal. He always, you ask him a question, and it's the best answer, the most truthful answer he ever gave. You said, what is Trump likely to say? I don't think he was really answering your question. He's just doing what he usually does. But you said, what is he likely to say tonight in his speech? And he said, Donald Trump is the greatest president ever. That's probably what he will say tonight.
Well, I would expect. I mean, Joe Biden, if he were speaking tonight at the Republican National Convention, he'd probably say the same thing.
That Donald Trump was the greatest president ever?
No, that he is the best president ever. I'm saying if you're president, just like you, Matt, if I could bring it down, if I could localize it, as they often do in newsrooms across the country, let's localize it and say, if you were giving a speech, you might be tempted, I'm not saying you will, but you might be tempted to say, I was the best mayor ever for Binghamton.
Go listen to all the speeches I gave. I still have them in an envelope of anybody who, that's left to the public to decide if you want.
Yeah, but still, we all have egos. Look, Matt, I'm the best talk show host ever on WNBF.
I would probably agree with that.
Thank you. All right, continue. Massage my ego. Continue. You know how this game is played. Continue.
The bar is low, my friend.
Well, Matthew, you've just earned yourself another 5 minutes. Continue.
But anyway, it's I listened to Mr. Molinaro on your little interview there from the convention, but ironically, I'm on some list. I'm on a lot of lists. My phone gets messages from Donald Trump like 15 times a day. I don't know how I got on that list, but I was included in a call-in the other day. You just had to click on and you were in. You're supposed to be able to ask a question, and they never let me ask a question. I'm sure they have a way of looking up who the person is and didn't want me to ask a question. But anyway, I like some things Mr. Molinaro proposes, but the deal is all these Republicans who keep harping on the biggest issue they know with their low information voters is who probably don't even know that it's really the Republicans' fault we don't have any meaningful immigration reform or policy. It's clearly in there. It started out with Stephen Miller. There was back in the day when he was working for that senator that became Attorney General. I forget his name. But anyway, he single-handedly, Stephen Miller, killed a bipartisan deal back in, before the Trump days, a little before the Trump got elected. Then we fast forward to, yes, we have problems with immigration. Every country in the world that's, doing better than a lot of other places in the world has immigration problems. And it's really what fuels the right-wing movements all across the globe, because nobody's really, nobody seems to want to try to say, how can we solve this? They want to keep it as the issue that propels them and all their followers, who it's so easy to bait them with.
Sure, it's a convenient issue.
So Mark Molinaro, my point is, Mark Molinaro on this was blaming Biden and the administration for everything that's happening at the border. And I'm not saying Joe Biden isn't, and it's a tough situation when you have such a divided government to do anything. But he's tried his first bill that he proposed. Yes, he pulled back some of the things that Trump had done because they were taking babies out of the arms of mothers, and still some of those babies have never been returned to the arms of their mothers. And by the way, that whole debacle is costing the taxpayers of the United States millions and millions of dollars for the way they handled that, because of lawsuits and stuff. So here we are. We have a guy that's, also speaking out of both sides of his mouth, because they're all afraid of the imperial leader, Donald Trump. And the biggest example is J.D. Vance. You could go on, there's reams of things he said about Donald Trump.
Yeah, before. But those things are no longer operative. Times change, man.
Yeah, right.
Well, they're no longer operative. J.D. Vance felt one way about Donald Trump 6 months ago. Now he feels different.
Yeah, but the point is that that's what all these people do, and that proves the only thing they care about is power. Because
everybody does. I mean, when you were mayor, you wielded your power.
Downies, everybody does both. There's a difference, and you know it, and everybody knows it if they're honest, between politicians that look. I will toot my own horn. I took a 50% pay cut to be mayor. So was I after power? Is that what I was after? No.
It must have been, because who in their right mind would go into a job where you're getting paid half of what you had before? You must have enjoyed the prospect of power, being the most powerful person in Binghamton for 8 years.
Yeah, but it's how you approach. If you're privileged enough and thankful enough to the voters who voted you in, you don't do it just yes, you have some power, but you're doing it hopefully for the right reason. And if we've decided that that's just out the door and it has nothing to do with our politics, and if we don't aspire to try to get that to be what politicians are all about, then why are we even talking? Why don't we just go out and let the republic crumble, which it is, and will rapidly under.
This country is in fine shape, buddy. You're saying the country's crumbling. This country's not crumbling.
No,
the only thing crumbling around here is Binghamton parking garages, my friend.
Really?
Yeah, take a look. Take a look. Okay. There's a parking garage.
How many parking garages are left?
Yeah, well, I was going to say the only one that's still in use. It's crumbling. Go in and take a look.
So
it has no elevators. Look, it's got 7 or 9 levels. No elevators, no working elevators. I mean, come on, man.
Well,
we can do better.
To defend anybody who's mayor, these are projects that cost millions of dollars.
I know.
I know.
And, Matthew.
And by the way,
we've covered it on the show.
Listen. If that's you're getting in my 5 minutes, I appreciate it, because you're the best talk show host in the world.
Another 5 minutes, ka-ching.
So here's the deal: if you have money to spend, or if the President of the United States finally puts together the best infrastructure package in over a decade, more than a decade, the Republicans did nothing. They wouldn't allow an infrastructure package to be passed. And all these jobs you go all across the country, and you've got all these Republicans Not one Republican voted for that infrastructure plan, and they're all out there taking credit for the projects that are now being built in their jurisdictions. So this is the kind of hypocrisy that we shouldn't stand for. And it's, quite frankly, it's usually, I really think that, and it's the, somewhat of the fault of the Democrats, but they don't, it's like Michelle Obama said, when they go low, you go high. And that's what we've pretty much done. I don't know how much longer we can continue to do it.
It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Yeah.
Well, but the point is, there was a time when nobody had to go low or high. Because
they've always gone low. Everybody goes low.
That is not true. You go back to the politics of, who was the speaker back then from Massachusetts there?
Tip.
I got his name now.
Tip O'Neill.
Tip O'Neill.
I know. It was legendary that he and President Reagan, at the end of the day, would go out and have a drink or whatever. Yeah, well, times were different, and part of it, though, and this isn't the whole story, but part of it is we didn't have these hyper-politicized talk shows on the radio and TV, and we also didn't have social media.
Well, and I totally agree that that's part of the problem, but and teaching all of our citizens to be critical thinkers. But that's the other thing about J.D. Vance. They say, I said all these things about Donald Trump, but then when I realized what a great president he was.
Well, he didn't say they weren't true. He just, I think when he said those things, he believed them to be true. Times have changed, man. You got to get with the program, Matthew.
Are we supposed to believe that J.D. Vance all of a sudden became a critical thinker within the last 2 years? And
he's a Harvard man. He's smart. He's smarter than me.
Oh, man. He's a Yale man.
I'm sorry. See, that proves how dumb I am. So, yeah, J.D. Vance is a whole lot smarter than I am.
Well,
And he has a nicer beard. He has a nicer beard. Am I right?
Yeah, better than
Thank you.
But if you look at some of the things that people are saying, if you really go back, a lot of people are going back, and there's articles written well before he was ever even involved in politics, and you look at what he wrote in the Hillbilly Elegy, he basically was totally critical of all the people in Appalachia and blaming all their problems on themselves. And that's what he was doing. And now all of a sudden he's saying a totally different tune because they're trying to be a populist, populist party for the downtrodden. The reality is, Mr. Molinaro said this too. That's what he was so inspired by his speech. The talk is cheap. What you tell me, have your listeners call in and say one thing that he's done for them in terms of, they rail against unions, although I think they're smart enough to pivot a little there. They've railed against unions since Ronald Reagan. They've railed against, they've let everything happen that took all our manufacturing base away. They claim they're for the working man, but what do? They give tax breaks to the richest people in our country, who are the ones that are sending all the jobs, the ones that own the companies that send all the jobs overseas. So, and here's this guy who's trying to be, he's the whole reason Donald Trump picked him is because he has all these hedge funds and people in Silicon Valley that he has connections to. This is all about money.
Of course, it always is and always will be. You can't take money out of the political equation. You can't do it. It's not one party or the other. Both big parties. They're beholden to special interests because those interests have all the money. They're not beholden to you and me. We don't have money to spare. Look at the price of gas, man. We don't have that kind of money to give to the candidates. So, of course, special interests will always get special treatment by both major parties. That's the way it is. It's the way the Supreme Court says it should be. I'm Bob Joseph, live, most of all, on your side. Binghamton Now, WNBF. Thursday morning, 11:27. Lots of calls are suddenly pouring into our nerve center. Let's get to the calls at once. John in Susquehanna, good morning.
Good morning, Bob. I really enjoy your show. And it just seems that people miss the obvious. They're talking about the assassination attempt. Well, that was scripted right out. I mean, it isn't. I mean, Joe Biden said put him in the bullseye. That didn't mean anything. But they missed the obvious. The Supreme Court justices and several politicians, when they were voting on amnesty, said, well, it'd be all right then for I mean, I'm sure you've heard it. It would be all right then for a president to order the execution of another.
They didn't mean it literally.
Many times.
Oh.
I think the Supreme Court justices said it.
No. No. That's jumping to a contusion.
Well, didn't they say that when they were discussing it about the amnesty?
Oh, I don't recall it. It's so many days. So many days and weeks ago. That was many news cycles ago.
Politicians saying that. I don't even know which one it was, but I know I heard it several times.
I know.
That if a guy wants to assassinate.
Wow. Look, Joe Biden wouldn't harm a fly.
No, of course not.
Well, no, and none of these guys would. Donald Trump wouldn't hurt a fly. These people are proud Americans, and they're not going to harm anyone, even if they want to be president. Nobody's going to get harmed by intelligent, smart-thinking Americans.
Right. And, they're looking for a motive with this guy. Is there any motive?
Well, like many people involved in heinous crimes, there typically is no clear-cut motive, except that the guy probably was troubled.
Normal citizen like you and me just go try and assassinate somebody.
Well, the thing is, clearly he was troubled.
Yeah, of course.
Well, he should have gotten some help. The question, and I hate to bring this up, but they always say localize it. So the question is, for example, for the Susquehanna Valley High School graduate who lived in Conklin and then drove his mom's car to Buffalo, and terrible things happened, how come we don't get answers about his case?
No.
They all keep it a big secret. Unfortunately, after the fact, regardless of these heinous crimes, whether it's a mass shooting at a supermarket in Buffalo or an assassination attempt in Butler County, the answers are being withheld.
Well, there is no motive that justifies it.
Well, no, there's nothing to justify it, but we need to know more in terms of background, in terms of trying to figure out an explanation so we can stop this madness.
I agree. And I think it's got to start in the schools where these kids are.
Well, that's right. Schools have to encourage people to behave responsibly and peacefully. And if you have any kind of problems, if you're being bullied or if you feel alone, like you're the only person on this planet with 8 billion other people, if you aren't feeling right, get help before it's too late. Appreciate your call. We're big in Susquehanna. Tom in Susquehanna, you're on the air.
Hey, Bobby, how you doing?
Good.
Hey, listen, I think we were right. You know that?
Well, I'm always right.
No. You're like me. Sometimes you're wrong. But do you actually think Biden is not going to be the candidate? From what I can see.
Yeah, and by the way, if you look back the last several months, on more than one occasion, I've said on this program that don't you think, and this goes back more than a year ago, I could play the tapes. Right. I could play the tapes, and I often said, don't you think that you know who the two candidates are going to be for the November 2024 election. Now, I didn't get more specific, and I certainly didn't predict or suspect this kind of scenario exactly. But look, in human life, a lot can happen even over the course of a month. And we were talking more than a year away from the election. And given everything that can happen with people, I was just being serious, trying to break it to people. Don't assume that it's going to be Biden versus Trump.
That's right. All right, you know what, Bobby? It was over that time because I remember saying to my wife, I says, you know what? I don't think it's going to be him. She, oh, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. I says, no. I says, I was right. And I says, and then like at that time, Bobby, you and I hardly agree on anything. But I remember you saying that, and you even were more specific than that. You were saying that you didn't think he was going to be the president because I says, look at this. He agrees with me. And I called you up and I said, hey, Bobby, you're right. I cannot believe the people even Hakeem Jeffries isn't backing him now. Schumer's not backing him.
I know. I mean, isn't that interesting that some of the highest profile people, including 2 New York Democrats, including a Binghamton University graduate, are now breaking the news. And look, I feel sorry for these Democratic leaders right now because they have to do this in a way that conveys the message clearly, but in a way that's not mean. And that's a very hard needle to thread.
Yeah, Bobby, I think they knew about it all along.
Well, what I think, Tom, I think they suspected it and feared it, but I think for some reason, at least some of the people thought miraculously they could pull it off. That even during a debate, similar to what we had a few weeks ago on TV, I think they were just going to hold their breath, keep their fingers crossed, and think if they gave President Biden enough rest and enough coaching and then said their prayers, that it would have worked out. Well, it didn't work out the way they wanted.
Bobby, I felt sorry for that man on that stage. He's younger than I am, but I could, the way his eyes looked, the way he was handling himself, I turned to my wife, I says, you know what? I says, I feel sorry for him. Oh, you're going to feel, yes, I said, I do.
Yes, as a person. And I know a lot of other people said, I don't know that I said it on the air, but I was certainly thinking it, that this is elder abuse, whether it's Dr. Jill or Hunter or even his staff. I mean, the White House chief of staff, his political advisors, someone had the ability to step in and prevent that embarrassment from happening. They could have even made up a lie. I've gone on record, and I don't encourage elected officials or their handlers to lie to the American people. But in this particular case, given that he was clearly not up to the challenge of facing Donald Trump during a 90-minute debate on CNN, I would have accepted a little white lie saying he tested positive for COVID, and so he can't show up for the debate. At least that would have spared him the humiliation he wound up having to deal with on live TV.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, to me, that's the heartbreaking thing. And I think that applies maybe not to everybody, because there are some people who really, 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 not only do they really disagree with Biden, but they also really, for whatever reason, seem to hate the guy. But I think most of us, like you, felt sorry that he was out there. And look, he was out there all alone. It was Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and the 2 moderators. Even, you know, it probably couldn't have been finessed, but, you know, in fairness, even the moderators at some point, after about 5 minutes, should have said, you know, this is going to cause us all sorts of trouble. We're going to get reprimanded, maybe fired by CNN, but we're shutting this down right now.
Yep. Bobby, that would have been a TKO.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I know that Jake Tapper and Dana Bash would have caught flack, and maybe both of them would have gotten fired. But I have to say, I really hadn't thought about this till now, but if I were one of the moderators and one of the candidates was in that position within the first few seconds, look, even he was not good even from the first minute of his answering the first question. And so I think out of a sense of humanity and fairness, and I think what I would have done is tried to have phrased it this way. Mr. Biden, it appears that you're not on top of your game right now, and maybe he would have said, yeah, I've got a cold, I haven't been feeling well, haven't been sleeping well, and then either or both of the moderators could have said, well, how about this? With the agreement of Donald Trump, how about we wrap up this debate now and reschedule at some point in the near future when you're feeling better?
Right.
That would have been the right thing to do. As I say, there would have been hell to pay. I bet both Jake Tapper and Dana Bash would have been fired immediately, and then people would, no matter if they were Republicans or Democrats or whatever, people would be criticizing them. But I think that would have been the right thing to do.
Right. Well, I like I said, I'm old now. All my relatives are gone, but I look back now, and like I tell my wife, I says, look at Uncle Eddie. I said, I could, the same thing, and Duty the same way, and I could, and well, what it was that Alzheimer's ran in the family, and also, too, if you had, I think Duty had a plate in his head from the war, but I mean, he had an operation on him, Trump. Not Trump, Biden.
Yeah.
And it's just that I could see it by the way he walks, by the way he looks, by the way he's distracted and looks into, I says, this is gone.
Yeah, it's so sad. It's so sad. It's nothing political. It's all personal and about feeling some sympathy, some empathy for another person. Thank you, Tom. Linda in Binghamton, you're on the air.
Well, good morning.
Morning.
I just wanted to report something. Are you aware where Legacy Bay apartments are on Glenwood Road?
Oh, I know it well.
Okay. And right behind there's a reservoir that borders the golf course. Well, I want to let you know that for the past 7 months, there's someone living up there in a tent that's threatening both myself and my neighbor because sometimes we will walk our dogs for a long walk. And I have called the town of Dickinson, the town of Binghamton, the sheriff, the state police, the Binghamton police, and the answer that I received was, we can't do anything about it. Our hands are tied.
How did he threaten you?
By pointing his finger at me with his hoodie on and saying, get the hell out of here. Exactly, I shouldn't say that. It was a worse word than that I won't repeat on the air. So when I called the police, they said, I said, so you're telling me basically I don't walk my dog there anymore. And they said, if you want to stay safe, that's the answer to your question. I just was dumbfounded by that.
Well, I bet that situation's not unique. I bet other people around here have experienced something similar. This is the first time I'm hearing about this specific case, but I have heard in the past where people have felt uncomfortable because of people who make threats, not necessarily if they're walking their dog, but sometimes, there's some people in certain neighborhoods who make threats or exhibit behavior that appears to be bizarre and scary. And I know sometimes people have told me they call the police, and the police often say, well, we can't do anything because no crime has been committed.
That's correct. So basically they tell me, let's see. But my question is this going to go on further? Like, if this is allowed to happen, is it going to go on further?
Well, I hope not, but the truth is probably.
I get that. I get that. Well, and I'd give this shirt off my back to anybody. And I was thinking I'd like to talk to him and say, hey, why don't you go to the Y or go? But you know what? I just don't dare do that because I'm afraid.
Yeah, and I would be too. And if I wasn't afraid, I would go up there after the program, try to find him, and try to have a conversation with him to get him into a better place. But again, it doesn't sound like that would be a wise move for me.
No. And one other question, maybe you are aware, or maybe you're not. I heard some talk about the city council approving some legislation that if someone comes on your property, that you can't remove that. Do you know if that's true or not?
I don't think city council has approved anything about that, but I do know because of state law right now, there still will be problems with so-called squatters because state law still, under some circumstances, if people have stayed in property, a building they don't own for a certain amount of time, apparently they can't just be kicked out. So, but I don't think city council has done anything regarding that.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I just wanted to report that.
All right.
It's up on.
All right. Well, always be careful, and even anytime you're walking your dog, just watch out for people. Most people, even some people who don't look friendly, usually aren't dangerous. But say if somebody is acting in a menacing way, and just keep your distance. Do your best not to further antagonize that person. And yeah, if you have to change your route for walking your dog, I guess you have to do it.
I will. I
Okay.
have. I just put
Yeah.
it that way.
Yeah.
Well, you have a good day.
Thank you. DJ in Binghamton, you're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Bob. You have said on the show before, as have I, and now others are calling up about it, that we are, WNBF listeners, are a family. And that's really the way that I consider us, like a family. People talk about getting together, et cetera, et cetera. And now there's more and more questions about Ron from Binghamton, who walked his dog at Rec Park and who has called up about football concussions and things like that. And now you said today that you mentioned about the articles that he's written. If you can get his name or one of the listeners can get his name, I tried, but not real extensively, from one of those articles on Press Connects about the football concussions. If you have his last name, you can check the obituaries to see if he did pass away, because a lot of us are concerned about him, and maybe even get help from someone in the Press and Sun Bulletin who can find one of those articles, get his last name, and find him through that.
All right. Well, in the meantime, I'm hoping that we hear from him. So I appreciate your call. Yeah, we are an extended family here on the station, and so many people have listened, I think, to this program from its inception, listened to my predecessor, Tony Russell, for many years, listened to all the other great people who've been here at WNBF. I was going to start naming names, and then I stopped because if I start naming names, I'll leave someone out. But we appreciate the listeners, the people who've been loyal members of the WNBF audience for decades. In some cases, they've been listening to the station since before I got here, and I've been here for a while. I've been fortunate. I've been here for a really long time. That wasn't how I planned it, but that's how it turned out, and I'm glad. And just the fact that through all sorts of, technology changes, ownership changes, format changes, everything changes. Management. In some ways, it's a bit surprising. It is a bit, I didn't, when I first walked into WNBF radio, when the station was at Center Plaza on Henry Street, there was no plan to be at WNBF for a long time. But I'm glad it's worked out that way. More calls are coming up on this Thursday morning. I'm Bob Joseph, Binghamton Now, WNBF. More calls, more often. James and Endwell, you're on the air.
Hey, Bob. Yes, it is a drag getting older. I'm pushing 70 now. But regarding the last caller, being WNBF listeners being extended family, didn't you guys have a get-together once up to Round Top in Endicott?
No, it was discussed, but that never happened. Someday it might happen. I think it should happen, but I don't know the logistics. I'd probably have to call the county to see if we could do that.
Right. The reason I called was I was listening yesterday and kind of multitasking, and I missed part of something you're discussing about the Binghamton Press distribution building, turning it into a research facility for lithium-ion batteries. Is that true?
That's what they claim. They had a big dog and pony show there a few weeks ago.
Oh, okay. Somehow I missed that. I used to work there. That'd be a good.
Yeah, it was interesting how they held that, and they invited everybody on the planet but me. Really? Isn't that weird? So apparently they were proud enough to have their big announcement, and yet Bob Joseph, the guy who's probably done the most reporting about Binghamton University and about that Gannett building over the last 15 years, we won't invite him. So you can read into that what you will.
That's not right. Yeah,
it's not right. It's a darn shame, but it's
a beautiful facility, though.
It's a beautiful facility that was, to a large extent, the construction was covered thanks to state taxpayers because it was built on a brownfield site, so it had better be a beautiful building.
Oh, that's right.
So look, maybe they know what I think about how the state taxpayers helped to subsidize the construction of the $50 million newspaper plant that wound up operating for 12 years and then was shut down, and then the state winds up buying it. So it seems like
originally $50 million.
That's how much. So
and it just sold for $1 million, right?
Of course, $50 million includes all the equipment. The building was just a small part of it. Remember all of the custom-made printing presses that were manufactured in Germany and then shipped over here in dozens of shipping containers so they could be assembled. That's where most of the money was. But still, again, the bottom line is you and I, as state taxpayers, we subsidize the construction of the place. And then, after they could find no other buyer, then the state goes and buys it for whatever amount, and now the state will use it for Binghamton University. But, that's the way it works in New York.
As I recall, the inserter room where they used to put the ads in the newspapers would be perfect for, manufacturing research. The ceilings were high. Then I used to work in there and also ran the forklift, unloading and loading trucks. They had these big rolls of paper that were like 2 tons. We used to lift them way up into the air.
I went in there when they had their open house. I saw those. I was fascinated by the place. But then, let's see. So they announced this thing June 27th with the National Science Foundation. So there's a big announcement, and there's Stanley Whittingham, who has been on this program. I think he wanted me there, but apparently somebody else didn't want me there. But that's okay. It was. Let's be clear. It was sufficiently covered by the local media. So why would they invite WNBF News?
Right. A good friend of mine is his secretary, and of course they're affiliated with Imperium 3. Are they going to have something to do? The lithium-ion battery plant. Will they have something to do with this research facility?
Hard to say. If I was there, I would have asked, but I didn't have the opportunity. So it's.
Well, the thing I liked about that distribution plant and the presses is they used environmentally friendly ink, so that was kind of.
So they claimed.
Yeah,
I think it was soy based.
Yeah.
So if you had a soy allergy, you could probably get sick from the ink rub off on your fingers.
Right. Oh, and I want to encourage people to watch that. J.D. Vance, the Hillbilly Elegy. I watched that. It's a 2-hour movie.
Is it sort of like the Beverly Hillbillies, or is it a little different?
Well, in some ways, his grandmother reminded me of Granny on the Beverly Hillbillies. Also, my mom.
Oh, really? Okay.
My mom was very strict.
Yeah.
But
all right, I'm gonna see if I can find that.
It's really interesting. The time goes by quick, and it's fascinating where he came from and where he is now.
Well, I hope when J.D. Vance comes to Binghamton, I hope he stops here at the Binghamton Now studio because I have a few questions.
Oh, and getting back to Joe Biden, I actually wrote the White House. I'm no doctor, of course, but my dad has something called hydrocephalus, and it mimicked dementia almost perfectly. He had trouble with his speech, he had trouble with his gait and walking, and I suggested to them that, they might want to check that what that hydrocephalus is pressure in the brain from the fluids not draining properly, and they can reverse, all those symptoms quite easily. With my dad, they put in a hose to help drain the excess fluid, and it totally helped him out. But
maybe that's all. Maybe that's all they need to do. Maybe if they come up with the right procedure, it can help him, and he can make a rapid recovery. Appreciate your call. 11:54 at WNBF. Martin from Binghamton, you're on the air.
Yeah, I just, in the back page of the first section of the press, I just read fully a great article on the shooter. And the title is Trump Shooter Had Limited Prep Time. But the main paragraph says where there was a friend of his that when they were in freshmen in high school, they both tried out for the rifle team, and that he was asked to leave because he was a bad shot. Now, it says that he had limited prep time. Well, there was 4 years that he lapsed since he was a freshman. Now, if he was really intent, if he was a real gun nut, it says in the article that he wore a lot of hunting clothes and all that stuff. It seems to me that, he would have taken Trump out. That, but he had plenty of time to improve, which he apparently didn't. And it's unfortunate that he had killed that great man who was protecting his family. But it says, that he didn't make it as a freshman. And so, but the title of the article is he had limited prep time, which is so contradictory to the whole article. I don't even know how they allowed that to get printed when they put that paragraph in there. So he's just lucky. History would have changed, man. Just an inch or two, to the left.
Well, some are calling it a miracle.
Yeah, well, there's another article in here that I didn't read yet about the right is looking at it as religious, that he survived this because he's their savior and all of this stuff. And, it just comes down to reality. He was a bad shot. He just missed him. He had plenty of time. He had a clear shot. He had 4 years to prep for that moment.
Well, the whole thing is still upsetting and still perplexing. Terrible. And we need more answers. That's our program for today. Thanks to everybody who called and everybody who's been listening. I'm Bob Joseph. I'll be back tomorrow morning from 9 to noon on WNBF.